Mr. Schiff exploited his position as chair of Intel Committee and every opportunity possible, threatening national security, undermining our duly elected president, and bringing dishonor upon the institution.
You are about to watch Anna Paulina Luna rip Adam Schiff to shreds. He couldn't say a word.
Americans do not trust Congress. From the highest levels of office, an elected member of this body enabled the fraudulent spending of $32 million out of the pockets of our American people and threw it down the drain to knowingly chase ghosts, all for political gain. This man occupied a position of the highest trust and authority. As chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff launched an all-out political campaign built on baseless distortions against a sitting U.S. president at the expense of every single citizen in this country and the honor of the House of Representatives. With access to sensitive information unavailable to most members of Congress and certainly not accessible to the American people, Schiff abused his privileges, claiming to know the truth, while leaving Americans in the dark about this web of lies. Lies so severe that they altered the course of the country forever. The lie that
Gentlelady will suspend. The House is not in order. Members, please take your conversations off the floor.
The lie that President Donald Trump colluded with Russia to steal the 2016 presidential election, revealed to be completely false by numerous investigations, including the Durham report. The lie that the Steele dossier, a folder of falsified and since completely debunked collusions, accusations funded by the Democrat Party, had any shred of credibility. Yet Schiff read it into congressional record as fact. Lies concocted and compiled in a false memo that was used to lie to the FISA court to precipitate domestic spying on U.S. citizen Carter Page, violating American civil liberties. Not only was this egregious abuse of Schiff's privileged access to classified information, but this memo was littered with 17 major mistakes and omissions. The groundless memo violated Carter Page's civil liberties, publicly assassinated his character, and subjected him to multiple abusive, unlawful investigations. Mr. Schiff exploited his position as chair of Intel Committee and every opportunity possible, threatening national security, undermining our duly elected president, and bringing dishonor upon the institution. Perhaps most unforgivable, Schiff ripped apart American families across the country with repeated false narratives. His own political good was served by permanently destroying family relationships and sowing lasting division across our land, which we live with every single day. The perpetrator of this web of deceit became mainstays on cable news, waking up every morning with one goal: to lie to the American people that there was a direct evidence of Russia collusion. Despite transcripts from Schiff's investigation showing that the Director of National Intelligence, former Obama Attorney General, former Attorney General, and FBI Director, to name a few, went on record telling Schiff's committee that there was no direct evidence for his criminal conspiracy. Yet to this day, Schiff actively fundraises off of his exploitation of Americans as if robbing them from the truth and $32 million in taxpayer dollars was not enough. Can anyone in this chamber comprehend this list of crimes and yet somehow believe that there should not be an answer for it? This is not a partisan act. This is not a conservative versus liberal vote. This is a clear vote between right and wrong, and I urge you to do the right thing. I will end with repeating with what I started with. The American people do not trust Congress. The cyclical pattern of lies has worn down the credibility of every institution and every official in the United States government. You see it, I see it. If we run away from this opportunity to hold this man accountable, there is only one fault, and that is of ourselves. We will betray the people who trusted us and sent us here to do the right thing. We will be responsible for the end of any shred of justice in this body, and we will reject the duty that we swore an oath to protect upon taking office.
This privileged resolution isn't about politics. It is about the seriousness of being honest and forthright as a member of Congress and upholding the oath of office that we all take upon being sworn in. It is true that the gentleman from California wouldn't be the first member of Congress to exaggerate or stretch the truth, but willfully lying about serious issues our country has faced is something entirely different, and claiming that a sitting president has committed what amounts to treason is beyond simple hyperbole. This member's lies led to the wasting of millions of taxpayer dollars for unnecessary investigations and the deflection of our attention from the most pressing issues at hand to focus on a made-up crisis. This member's actions were designed to delegitimize the 2016 election and to hamstring the Trump administration. For all the talk about not accepting the election results in 2020, perhaps Democrats and the media, which are mostly one and the same, might want to look at their actions in 2016. To make matters worse, this representative perpetuated these lies while he was chair of the House Intel Committee and consistently implied, if not outright stated, that he had inside information. In that capacity, he lied about how the FBI and DOJ obtained and renewed a FISA warrant. The FBI and DOJ officials did not omit material information from the FISA warrant. How the DOJ used the Steele dossier, what was collected via the FISA warrant, the FBI's vetting process for the Steele dossier, that he had an alleged smoking gun showing that President Trump colluded with Russia. And if each of these claims has proven to be false. But the lies have continued. In fact, they have become compulsive, and they continue right through to this very day. The lies weaken this body, and if left unchecked, threaten the rule of law, our election integrity, and the civil rights of his targets. The words and actions of this member were dangerous and untrue, knowingly untrue. There must be a serious consequence for that. Being censored is the least of what he should be subjected to, and I support this resolution.
Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe because the corporate media will never frame this story honestly. And that's exactly why clips like this matter. Anna Paulina Luna just said out loud what millions of Americans have been thinking for years. Adam Schiff spent years presenting himself as the man who had the smoking gun on Donald Trump, the man who supposedly knew the truth about Russia collusion, the man who went on television night after night strongly implying that Trump was compromised by a foreign power. And after all the investigations, all the media hysteria, all the breathless headlines, what did Americans actually get? Nothing. No proof of Trump-Russia collusion. No grand conspiracy. No treason. Nothing close to the narrative Schiff spent years selling to the country. And Luna came to Congress ready to reopen all of it. What made her speech hit so hard is that she wasn't talking like a politician trying to sound polished and careful. She sounded angry. And honestly, a lot of Americans are still angry about this entire era of politics because the Russia collusion narrative didn't just dominate cable news. It consumed the country. It divided families, destroyed trust in institutions, and convinced millions of people that the sitting president of the United States was basically working for Vladimir Putin. That is an unbelievable accusation when you stop and think about it. And yet for years, Democrats and much of the media pushed it as if it were already proven fact. Luna hammered Schiff over the Steele dossier because that's one of the most embarrassing chapters in modern political history. Democrats, intelligence officials, media personalities, and anti-Trump operatives elevated opposition research funded by Democrats into what was treated like sacred evidence. The dossier was packed with claims that were either unverified, misleading, or outright false, but for years it became the backbone of endless media speculation about Trump being a Russian asset. And Adam Schiff leaned into it harder than almost anybody else in Washington. That's what makes this moment politically important. Luna is trying to force accountability onto figures who spent years driving a narrative that fundamentally changed the country. Whether Democrats like it or not, the Durham report and multiple investigations severely damaged the credibility of the original collusion claims. Even people who dislike Trump have had to quietly admit that the sweeping conspiracy story sold to the public never matched the evidence. But here's the part that really frustrates conservatives. Nobody paid a price for getting it wrong. Think about that. Americans were told democracy itself was under attack. They were told Trump may have stolen an election with Russian help. The media treated Schiff like a national truth-teller. He was everywhere. CNN, MSNBC, Sunday shows, press conferences, constantly suggesting bombshell evidence was around the corner. Then the narrative collapsed. And instead of accountability, the same people just moved on to the next outrage cycle as if none of it mattered. That's why Luna's speech resonated with conservatives. She framed this as something bigger than Adam Schiff personally. She framed it as a symbol of a political system where powerful people can push false narratives for years, divide the country, damage public trust, burn through taxpayer money, and still face zero consequences afterward. Her comments about Americans no longer trusting Congress are absolutely true. Public trust in institutions is collapsing. Trust in the media is collapsing. Trust in intelligence agencies is collapsing. And a major reason for that is because Americans watched elite political figures confidently push narratives that later fell apart with little acknowledgement and even less accountability. The Carter-Page situation is another huge example. The FISA surveillance controversy became a disaster for the FBI because the applications contained major errors and omissions. Conservatives have argued for years that federal surveillance powers were abused in pursuit of a political narrative, and Luna brought all of that frustration roaring back into the conversation. And let's be honest about something else. Democrats spent years accusing Republicans of election denial after 2020, but conservatives never forgot what happened after 2016. For years, large parts of the political establishment openly worked to cast Trump's presidency as illegitimate or compromised by Russia. Luna directly called that out, and that's why her speech is getting so much attention on the right. Now, of course, Democrats are furious about this. They argue Schiff was defending democracy, investigating legitimate national security concerns, and responding to Russian interference efforts that intelligence agencies did confirm happened in some capacity. They'll say Luna is rewriting history to protect Trump politically, but that argument ignores the biggest issue here. There's a difference between acknowledging Russia tried to influence public discourse online and claiming the President of the United States secretly colluded with Russia to steal an election. Those are not the same thing. And for years, many Americans were led to believe the second claim was proven when it never was. That distinction matters. And politically, Republicans have figured out something important. The Russia collusion saga still deeply energizes the conservative base because many voters see it as the original sin of the modern political establishment's war against Trump. To them, it represents media manipulation, government overreach, selective outrage, and a two-tier system where establishment figures are protected no matter what happens. That's exactly why Luna delivered this speech the way she did. She wasn't trying to sound bipartisan. She wasn't trying to calm tensions. She was trying to channel the anger millions of conservatives still feel over years of investigations, leaks, insinuations, and media narratives that ultimately failed to deliver what was promised. And whether people like it or not, Adam Schiff became the face of that entire era. The bigger problem for Democrats is that speeches like this land differently now than they would have a few years ago. Americans are more skeptical, more distrustful, more cynical about institutions than they were during the peak of the Russia investigation years. So when Luna talks about public trust collapsing, she's tapping into something real that goes far beyond one politician or one investigation. Because once the public starts believing powerful institutions manipulate information for political purposes, rebuilding that trust becomes almost impossible. And that damage doesn't disappear just because cable news stops talking about it. At the end of the day, Luna's speech was about accountability. Conservatives believe Adam Schiff helped fuel one of the biggest political misinformation campaigns in modern American history, while presenting himself as the guardian of truth. Democrats believe Schiff was pursuing legitimate concerns about foreign interference and presidential conduct. But what cannot be denied is this. The Russia collusion narrative changed the country forever, and Americans are still arguing about the fallout nearly a decade later. And judging by this speech, Republicans are nowhere near done fighting over it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and comment below. Do you think Adam Schiff should ever be held accountable for the Russia collusion claims, or do you think he was justified the entire time?